Welcome to our program about Gridless Tessellations. This is a museum corner take and make program. And I am Mrs. Jackman. We are bringing you this program, it's Museum Corner, based on some of our old exhibits in Museum Corner. We've had twice the exhibit for Pattern Pod. So if you haven't seen Pattern Pod here in the library, you can take a piece of that exhibit home with you. We have Museum Corner kits that you can come into the library and check out, and we actually have 3 that are related to the Pattern Pod exhibit. In these kits, you'll see that there are books and games and puzzles. There are a lot of different activities. There's a white binder in each one with activity sheets and coloring so that you can do some patterns at home, just like we did when we had our exhibit of Pattern Pod. So there's 3 different Pattern Pod Museum Corner kits that you can come in the library and check out, and then bring them home and have some fun with patterns at home. Today, we're going to do gridless tessellations. Tessellations are repeating patterns, and a lot of times they're done where they fit within a certain grid. But today we're going to do gridless, which is a little bit more flexible and allows you to have some more fun with your patterns. In your take and make kit, you should have a few things. There should be some small cardstock squares, a few of them, a few sheets of copy paper, just some blank paper for drawing on, 1 sheet of colored cardstock paper, and I'll show you what we're going to do with this later, 1 sheet of watercolor paper. This is the bigger white paper. Let's see if I can show you compared to the copy paper. See, this is the bigger paper, is your watercolor paper. And then to color on it, some of these fun pens, these are watercolor markers. Then the things that you'll need from home for this project would be a pencil, a pair of scissors, maybe a black pen if you want to do some outlining, and some tape to tape your pieces together. Okay, so get your supplies together. I'm going to turn the camera down, and then we can go step by step and create these gridless tessellations together. So here is an example of a gridless tessellation, and this is somebody's finished product. You can see the sort of bird pattern that repeats and repeats and repeats, and after they've drawn it, they've colored it in. They've used different colors, they've done some shading. Some of the wings are darker and the body of the bird is a little bit lighter. Then they drew some leaves to kind of finish it. We're going to do something like this, and we can go step by step. So the first thing that you're going to do is, using a pencil, you're going to get your small squares and you're going to draw a shape from one corner of the small square of cardstock to the other corner. We're not going to draw across, we're going to draw from one corner to the adjacent corner with some kind of shape, and it can be whatever you like. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to draw a kind of sweeping, curving thing, and then I'm going to end back here so that I'm close to the corner where I started. Then, using my scissors, I'm going to cut this shape out. So just cut along whatever line you made. So you want it to be sort of an easy shape to cut. Maybe 1 or 2 angles or wiggles in it. Keeping close to your line, but it doesn't have to be exactly on the line, because we're going to go by the shape, not the pencil line anyway. And back to that corner. Okay, so then we're going to move our shape. So here is the shape. You can see it came exactly right out of there. And we're going to lift it up and carry it across our piece and put it down on the opposite side. Just like that. You want to see that again? From wherever your cut piece is, you're going to lift it up and move it across your square to the opposite side and put it down. Line up your corners so that there's no space in between. And you can hold it down a little bit like that. And then get a piece of tape and tape it down. Tape your pieces together carefully. Next, we're going to draw from one of these cut lines across to this other cut line. And it can be anywhere you want. You could start at the edge, you could start in the middle, you could go straight across, you could go squiggly across, whatever you feel like doing. Maybe I'll make this easy and I'll just go straight across. So I'm going to go from this cut line straight across, maybe curvy a little bit, to this cut line. And then I'm going to cut it out. Right along my line, from this cut edge across right through the tape, that's okay, to the other cut edge, very carefully. And we're going to do the same thing again. So we have our pieces. They would fit together like that if they were still together. And I'm going to lift this one up so I can get my fingers under it. It's tricky to be able to show you at the same time. So I'm going to lift this one up from where I cut it, bring it across, and put it back down so that the straight lines meet. Okay, I'll show you one more time. From wherever you cut, this is your cut line in the middle. We're just going to lift it up, shift it over, and put it down, and we're going to tape this. And now we have one kind of unusual shape that we can use as a tessellation. And you can do this with a few more pieces. So let's try one more, and then I'll show you some others that I've done. This was a curvy one. I'm going to try one that's sort of more straight lines, and we'll see what we're going to do. At this point, we're just drawing shapes. We're not going to try and see what it's going to become in the end. We'll figure that out later as we go. So from one corner to the next corner, right? It's close to it. It's along the same side. We're going to draw some straight lines and back to the other corner. And now I'm going to cut this one out. Along the lines that I drew. You can do this with yours. Cut along the lines, or as close as possible. Okay, so now here's the piece that I cut out. It would go right there. We're going to lift it up and go across our shape and put it down, right, from where it was. We're not turning it, we're not flipping it, we're just lifting it up, moving it across, and putting it down. And you get those corners to meet nice with no space in between. You take a little piece of tape and tape it. Next, we're going to draw a line from this cut edge across to this cut edge. And again, it could be anywhere. I could continue from this line maybe, or I could continue from this line, or I could just draw it right in the middle. think I will continue from this cut line. And again, instead of going straight across, I'm going to make it a little zigzag across. And then we're going to cut this one out. Ooh, I better be careful. My first one didn't have a lot of tape on that side. Get a tiny piece of tape. Okay. Now, again, this is where our cut was. Not going to flip it. I'm not going to turn it. I'm just going to move it across the shape to the other side. It was here. And it's going to go here. I'm going to hold the corners down and put a piece of tape. So now we have two different shapes. I made one curvy and one with straight lines so we can see what they might become. And you can keep doing this with your other shapes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see which one of these tessellates, which means which one of our shapes is going to repeat itself the best, because sometimes they just don't work out that way as far as repeating. So choose a shape, put it in the center of your piece of paper, and trace around it lightly. And you can decide which way you think it might go. Is it starting to look like anything to you? Does it look like an animal? That should go one way. Does it look like something flying? That should go another way. And hold it down. Trace lightly around it with your pencil. All the way around. Very carefully staying close to the edge. And there's our shape. And then you can see what it looks like to place it in other areas. And we'll see how well it tessellates. Trace around it again. Here we go, we have two shapes. And you'll just see where it fits in. Which pieces, you can see right here, see how this curve and this little one match up with this long curve and this little one. And you can see where it's going to fit in. That's where you want to place it. And then you don't have to retrace those lines because they're already there. You can just trace around the rest of it. And there we have 3 of them done. So I'm happy with this one. This one seems to be tessellating very nicely. Let's see if I can show you an example of what happens if they don't tessellate nicely. I had this shape and I really liked it. But for some reason, and I'm not sure why, when I put them together, they weren't lining up properly. And I don't know if it was maybe I cut it a little bit wrong, but I should be able to put it in here. But you can see I have an extra little tail over here that doesn't meet up. If I make this and this match, then this down here doesn't match. I'll try drawing it and see how it goes. Draw around to this point. And around over here. I know you're seeing a lot of my hands on here. But see how, like here, it wasn't really meeting up. And I'm not sure exactly why that is. So that's okay. Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And we can just move on and pick a different shape. So do this with a few of yours and you'll see how it comes out. Here's the other shape we did, this angular shape. When you have a shape that you like, maybe I'll use this one. You want to make a stronger sample because this one's been taped in a few areas and it's a little bit wobbly. So to make a stronger one, we're going to use our colored cardstock. You can place it near the edge and we're going to trace around the edges very carefully. With whichever one you want to do as your final design, we're going to cut out of the cardstock. And you'll have extra left over for if you want to do more later. And then I'm going to cut this one out. I'm going to cut right along this line. And then I'm going to continue to cut this out. Following my lines. You can keep turning it, whichever way is going to be sort of easier for you to cut it. That's good. Careful of your fingers. Okay, so now that I have my final shape, I'm going to get this bigger piece of watercolor paper for our final one. Carefully trace the one that you like best onto the cardstock and then place the cardstock in the center of your watercolor paper and trace it lightly. And think about what it looks like to you. If you want it to look like something, an animal, a plant, a fish, maybe it's a robot or a cartoon character. And whichever way you think it should go, trace it. And then just like we did before, continue tracing it. And this is kind of interesting because a lot of tessellations that are done on a grid cover the entire paper, and it looks like wrapping paper copied from one side all the way to the other in this grid. This is a little different in that we are going to start in the center and move it out and around, and we don't have to continue drawing the entire thing. You can leave it away from the edges of the paper. Trying to figure out where it goes. Just keep sliding it around until you see that it fits into your puzzle piece. And then when your puzzle piece fits in, you know where you can draw your lines. I'm not sure what this one looks like. It reminds me of like a water pitcher, but I don't know that that's a cool thing to draw. I'm gonna fit this one right here. Oops. Use your eraser a little bit. I got a little bit too fast and went away from the edge. And remember, you don't have to trace around the entire thing. because there's a couple of lines that are already drawn where you're matching up. So you just have to draw the other ones that don't match up. Like that. And then I think this slides right in there. See that? It slides right in there. So then I don't have to draw these bottom lines, I just draw the top ones. And these are repeating patterns called tessellations. Now you can draw each shape in a little bit more detail. You can add your details right in here. Oh, I do think it looks like a bird. It has a bird with wings with an eye over here. And wings this way, and then his tail is this way. I don't know, he's a strange looking bird. Then you can use your colors and add some colors. These have a little thin tip, and they have a thicker side so that you can easily paint in some thicker lines. And then you can choose how you want to do it. I think this one, I'm going to make this bird yellow, and I'm going to make each other one a little bit different color. This one can be orange. Sort of like a paintbrush, like that. And you color and try and stay in the lines. If you go lightly with the paintbrush marker, it's a little bit easier to stay in the lines. But follow the lines. I'll make this shape green, and you can do this with yours. Yours could be all the same color, or they could be different colors. Make his wings go this way. This wing goes this way. Sometimes the brush strokes give you a line to follow, sort of an idea of texture in your picture. And then I think I'm going to make this one green down here. It's separate because it has the yellow and the orange in between, and then I think I'm going to make this one orange. So if I kept making more and more of these birds or shapes, whatever they are, I'm going to keep trying to make the colors like not touch each other. Does that make sense? That way you can kind of see a pattern of different shapes. I did this one a little bit differently. You can see I cut out the shape, And I liked this shape, it tessellated well, so I made it into a bird, but not just a bird with a heart and maybe a rainbow and some little details to it. So I drew my tessellation repeatedly and then started work on some details. So this is the same bird with the heart tessellated over and over again. And then I started putting in the details of an orange heart and a blue bird and a few colors for the rainbow. And you could also use markers that you have at home for this project. It doesn't have to be these kind of paint markers. Depends on what you feel like drawing today or painting today and how much detail you want to add into it, because this is your artwork that you get to complete how you would like, right? This is your choice. And I'll make my bird, my bluebird with a big wing. As your paintbrush goes over itself, it gets darker and darker. So if you wanted it darker, just keep applying layers of color and it'll be a little bit darker. Just fill that in. And then if you want, you can add details with a black marker, just like I've done here. You just trace around your lines. Basically, your same pencil lines you're now going to draw with your pen, just to give it a little distinction, a little different look, a little color. See, I made an eye on my bird. I don't know if that's hard to see. I tried to outline the wing a little bit so that we can tell where the bird's wing is. Here's another idea. Here's one that I did that's very angular in design. I cut it out of cardstock to make my final drawing. And here it is with a little shading, and it looks like a frog. So if I put this all across the paper, it would hop across like a little tessellated frog from one side of the paper to the other. I hope you had fun making gridless tessellations with me today. Made a few. I hope you had fun. Be creative and enjoy your artwork and your patterns. I'll see you next time. Bye.